the attack at the Heaton Park Hebrew Congregation Synagogue in Manchester.
Yes, and it's impossible to really talk about this without first acknowledging the tragedy. 2 people lost their lives.
And the impact on the community, especially considering it happened on Yom Kippur, one of their most sacred days.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to try and synthesize what we know, to get beyond the headlines. We want to understand the immediate response, the attacker, and, the wider context.
Right.
There's a key tension here, isn't there? On one hand, you have this incredibly effective tactical response, 7 minutes from the call to the suspect being neutralized.
7 minutes. That detail really jumps out.
It does. But then, juxtaposed with that, you have what looks like a complete gap in terms of predictive intelligence. Nobody saw this coming.
So we need to unpack the immediate actions, who this person was, and how the community and authorities reacted. That 7-minute timeline, though, that's the hook. In an attack like this with a car and a knife, 7 minutes is the difference between what happened and potentially something much, much worse.
A potential massacre, yes.
Yeah.
So let's start right there in those first chaotic moments. The timeline begins at 09:31 BST, Thursday morning.
Okay.
Reports start flooding into Greater Manchester Police. First, a vehicle driving at people near the synagogue. Then, almost immediately, reports of a man with a knife stabbing people.
The eyewitness accounts must have been harrowing.
They paint a picture of absolute chaos. I got one from a local resident, Shaw.
Right.
He described seeing a vehicle rushing past and driving straight for the members of the public.
And then the attacker got out?
Instantly. Jumps out with a knife and starts what Shaw described as a rampage. The speed of it all.
Just terrifying. And how did the police response unfold from there? We have accounts of that, too.
We do. Gareth Tung, who was a delivery driver nearby, saw it happen. He described an officer arriving, finding a man already bleeding out on the floor.
God.
Tung saw the police give warnings. The suspect didn't comply.
And they opened fire.
They did.
Yeah.
But interestingly, the sources highlight how precarious it still was.
How so?
Tung mentioned, and this must have been nerve-wracking, that after the first shot took the man down, he started getting back up.
Wow.
Which meant the officers had to fire again. It just shows you the split-second life-or-death decisions they were making.
Absolutely. And this all happened within that 7-minute window.
That's the operational insight here. It wasn't just random speed. By 09:38, just 7 minutes after that first call, the suspect, Jihad Al-Shamie, was dead.
So this wasn't just a standard response.
No, not at all. Police immediately declared a major incident. And crucially, they initiated the Code Plato.
Okay, Plato. For our listeners, what does that signify? Why is that important?
Code Plato is basically the playbook for the big stuff. It's the standard emergency service response specifically for large-scale threats, particularly things like marauding terrorist attacks.
So it means switching gears immediately.
Exactly. It signals a shift to aggressive, rapid intervention. The #1 goal is neutralizing the threat immediately, which is exactly what we saw happen in those 7 minutes.
And the response wasn't just local, was it? There were reports of military assets.
That's right. Later on, sources mentioned the SA helicopter, sometimes called Blue Thunder, over the area.
Right. That's not your average police helicopter?
Definitely not. That's part of the National Airborne Counterterrorism Response. It shows just how quickly this escalated to a high-level national security incident.
Okay, so a rapid professional response. But let's connect that back to the timing you mentioned earlier, Yom Kippur.
Yes, the context of the day is critical here.
Can you just briefly explain the significance for anyone unfamiliar?
Sure. Yom Kippur isn't just another holiday. It's the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. It's a very solemn day. Fasting, prayer, atonement, reflection. Traditionally, work is forbidden.
So, a day of peace and introspection targeted for violence.
Precisely. And operationally, that timing creates specific vulnerabilities. Synagogues tend to be packed on Yom Kippur.
Why is that?
Because even people who don't attend services regularly often go on Yom Kippur, so you have a large number of people gathered in one place.
A predictable, concentrated target.
Yes, and while security is often increased for the high holy days, the very fact that it's a known time of gathering makes it a target.
Which brings us to the people who are actually there at the synagogue. GMP highlighted their bravery.
They really did. Greater Manchester Police specifically mentioned the immediate bravery of worshipers and the security staff on site.
What did they do?
Well, the reports indicate they were instrumental in actually stopping the attacker from getting inside the synagogue building itself.
Really? So he never made it inside?
It seems not. And given how many people were inside worshiping, their actions were crucial. They essentially created a barrier.
Buying time.
Buying that critical time for the police, who were already responding under Code Plato, to arrive and neutralize the threat before he could get to the larger group inside. They were held there until it was safe,
Incredible bravery.
Yeah.
But even with that and the fast police response, people were still hurt. 2 fatalities and 3 hospitalized.
That's right. And the nature of their injuries tells its own story about the chaos. One person had a stab wound.
Okay.
Another was hit by the car during the initial ramming.
Right, the vehicle aspect.
And then a third person, interestingly, later presented himself with an injury. It's possible that injury happened during the police intervention itself, as they moved to stop the attacker.
It just underscores the layered nature of the violence, the car, the knife, the risks of the police response itself, all in minutes.
Exactly. That mix of trauma really speaks to the intensity of that short period, which brings us, inevitably, to the attacker himself.
Jihad Al-Shamie. What do we know about him?
He was 35, a British citizen, but of Syrian descent.
And his connection to the UK? Was he a recent arrival?
No, that's an important detail. Sources say he came to the UK as a very young child. He got British citizenship back in 2006 while he was still a minor.
So he grew up here, fully integrated into the UK context, essentially.
It would seem so. And this is where those operational details get really complex and, frankly, quite chilling.
What do you mean?
Al-Shamie was wearing a vest. And this vest had the appearance of an explosive device.
Okay. A suicide vest?
It looked like one. Police later confirmed it was not viable. It wasn't a real bomb.
But the officers responding wouldn't have known that.
Absolutely not. For the officers arriving on scene, dealing with an active stabber and car rammer, seeing what looks like an explosive vest, that changes everything.
That must have solidified their assessment of the threat level?
Completely. It signals maximum threat, not just immediate violence, but potentially a catastrophic explosion. Even if it turned out to be fake later, that visual confirmation likely cemented the decision to use lethal force immediately. Public safety has to be the priority over negotiation in that scenario.
Right. It justifies the speed and decisiveness of the response, tactically speaking.
It does. But then we pivot to that other side of the coin we mentioned, the intelligence failure.
This is a really stark part, isn't it?
It is. The most crucial bit of information from the investigation so far is that Al-Shamie's name was not found in initial searches of police and security service counterterrorism databases.
So he wasn't on any watch list, not under investigation.
Apparently not. He wasn't thought to be under current investigation. Now, they're doing deeper checks, of course, but initial searches drew a blank.
That's staggering. You have someone motivated enough to plan this, acquire a fake vest, target a specific holy day,
Right.
and he's completely off radar.
It raises that profound question, doesn't it? Did the tactical success, that 7-minute response, mask a deeper systemic issue in actually identifying these kinds of threats beforehand, particularly lone actors?
How do you stop someone you don't even know exists as a threat?
Well, that's the challenge.
Huh.
The system worked perfectly, you could argue, in terms of tactical deployment once the attack began, but it seems to have failed entirely in prediction or prevention. It really highlights the difficulty authorities face with individuals who perhaps radicalize quickly or maybe entirely alone outside of known networks or online spaces that are monitored.
If they're not communicating with known extremists, not posting things that trigger alarms.
They can become effectively invisible until the moment they strike.
Although there were subsequent arrests, weren't there? Does that suggest he wasn't entirely alone?
Potentially. Greater Manchester Police did move quickly to arrest 3 other people, 2 men in their 30s, a woman in her 60s.
On what grounds?
On suspicion of commission, preparation, and instigation of terrorism acts. So, the investigation is definitely looking very hard for any kind of support network, planning help, or encouragement Al-Shamie might have had. That's ongoing.
Okay. Let's shift then to the reaction. How did the wider world respond?
The political and societal response was immediate and strong.
The Prime Minister was abroad, wasn't he?
He was at a summit in Denmark. He cut that trip short immediately to come back and chair a COBRA meeting.
Which signals the seriousness right away.
Absolutely. COBRA is the government's emergency response committee. His public statement condemned the horrific attack, and he specifically pointed out that the timing on Yom Kippur made it all the more horrific.
Was there a reaction from the royal family as well?
Yes, King Charles and the Queen issued a statement saying they were deeply shocked and saddened by the news.
But perhaps the most powerful statements came from within the Jewish community itself.
Understandably. The chief rabbi, Sir Ephraim Mervis, gave a very impactful statement.
What did he say?
He called the attack the tragic result of what he described as an unrelenting waves of Jew hatred. He pointed to streets, campuses, social media.
So framing it not just as an isolated act, but as part of a larger worrying trend.
Exactly. His words really speak to a climate of fear and vulnerability that goes beyond this one terrible event. It suggests this attack, for him and perhaps for many in the community, felt like a physical manifestation of a persistent societal problem.
And what about reassurances? Were there commitments made to enhance security?
Yes, there were. Sir Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, made a public vow to ensure the protection of Jewish communities.
Wow.
He specifically promised additional police assets would be deployed at synagogues across the country, a tangible measure meant to provide reassurance.
Was that echoed by the government?
It was. The Home Secretary and the conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, both used very strong language, vile and disgusting, an outrageous attack. There was clear cross-party political unity in condemning it as a targeted assault on faith, requiring a national security response.
Okay, so if we take a step back and look at everything we've discussed from the sources today, what are the main things you, the listener, should take away?
Well, first, I think, is the awful significance of the timing converging on Yom Kippur, maximizing both the symbolic horror and the potential victim count.
Right.
Second has to be that extraordinary speed and efficiency of the emergency response. 7 minutes. Driven by protocols like Code Plato. It worked, tactically. And third, the crucial role of human bravery on the ground. Those worshipers and security staff who prevented the attacker from getting inside the synagogue. Their actions almost certainly saved many lives and bought that vital time.
So a mix of tragedy, efficiency, and bravery.
But the lingering question, the most compelling unresolved issue from this deep dive, circles back to that intelligence gap.
The fact that he wasn't on the radar.
Precisely. We see tactical intervention working incredibly well, incredibly fast. But we also see a clear failure in predictive intelligence for this type of attacker.
So the final thought for you to consider is this. Given Al-Shamie was stopped in 7 minutes but wasn't flagged beforehand, what does this really tell us about the future challenge of counterterrorism?
Are authorities facing a situation where they excel at responding but remain perpetually vulnerable to the lone actor, the invisible threat who radicalizes quickly and opts for immediate, high-impact violence? Where do you focus resources?
That tension between reactive capability and predictive intelligence, that seems to be the core challenge highlighted here. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the Manchester Synagogue attack.